Hello and welcome to Journeys and Journals. I'm Bernie Martin Beck and I get to talk to people about history. Come with me to Camp White and I have some people to tell us stories about after Camp White. My guest Joan Momsen, yes. Welcome, and Pastor Simons. You both have connections with Camp White.
Yes.
You both live in Josephine County.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us the rest of the story? What is your connection with the White City?
Well, I just found out I've been here longer than he has. So when Camp White was built in 1942, it was built because the war was going on. And after the war was over in 1946, they decommissioned it. And they had 900 buildings that they sold.
Just like that? I mean, all of a sudden it was a town and then it was not a town.
Yeah, well, it was a big military base that had maybe 50,000 soldiers at one time, training base. And when the war was over, as we do at the end of many wars, we just decommission and get rid of things as quickly as we can to get back to a civilian status. And so they had 900 buildings to sell. People in Medford bought the land, and there's a big industrial park there now. And
they renamed the town White City.
They named the White City, and a lot of people don't even know that it was named after a military captain. I think he was from Portland, so he was an Oregon military personnel, and they named the camp after him, Camp White. And so my mother and my father bought a barracks building.
You mean one of those lots of sleeping?
Great big ones. Mm-hmm. What I remember most, kind of silly, but I remember maybe because it was my height, we had a lot of white porcelain sinks, toilets, and urinals stacked up in the backyard, because with a barracks you have a large restroom facility and shower facility for the soldiers.
How much did this cost your folks?
Well, Mom and Dad never quite told me how much it cost, but they said they built the house for $4,500.
So that would be the new foundation and putting a heating system. Now let's get your in connection with Camp White. What's the story?
I pastor a church that's there, and I came, of course, 17 years ago, 1991. And so...
And do you know the story of how your church got there?
Well, I heard the story, and part of it was related to me by you. You brought the gentleman there to the church and introduced me to him, the one that hauled it over.
That's Mark Axtell.
And we went inside the church and seen the beautiful beams and things that's in there, the giant ones. And we haven't lowered the ceiling, although we wanted to. The lady said no.
There it is.
Yeah, there it is.
That's the church. Now, this is a little bit about pictures of the disassembly. That would be the chapel, but did you remember your family tearing those boards down?
Tore it down piece by piece, yes. Just kind of a fuzzy memory because I spent a lot of time. It was summer and it was warm, and that is a desert. They call it the Agate Desert, and it's really hot. And I remember spending a lot of time in the shady place, usually on a blanket spread out on the ground because it was too hot in the car, just sitting there watching them do it. And they just dismantled it.
Bill Young, who was my friend, who was senior in World War I, after the war they had practice out in this Agate Desert, what we'd call the reserve. Mm-hmm. He wasn't quite 16, but he sort of said he was. And that's Bill, and he said they had jigger grass to walk. It was terrible out there in the Agate Desert, and the kids that weren't from Southern Oregon, they just keeled over like 10 pins. A hot place. Now, have you been over there to see what they've done?
Yeah, I'm a veteran, a Korean veteran, and so I'm assigned to that facility at the dormitory.
Okay, so
I have a doctor there, that Dr.
And so is my husband, vet, but he's from Korea. Mm-hmm. And now, you have a connection with students. has that ever dovetailed in with history? What's your career?
I taught at Grants Pass High School for 28 years, taught history. And it came up occasionally, yes, because I could tell them. But I think one of the things that I think about most is people, if you don't grow up in an area or read about the history, you just make assumptions. And a lot of the kids didn't have a clue that White City was called White City because there was a military base there from 42 to 46.
Camp White.
Camp White.
And it was the biggest employer in Southern Oregon.
Yes, not only the military things, but these windows, like the one I brought here, were made in Medford.
Oh,
and I don't remember the name of the...
And these are called what?
They're 8x8 double hung windows, and if you only take one with the 8 panes in it, which they do in some cases, and make, like we use it in our greenhouse, and some of the windows that don't open around the house, and in our chicken house. And
you mean these are in the chicken house?
One of them, just like that, yes.
You mean you turn it upside down like this, and they'd have 4x4.
Mm-hmm. Another one just like it would be below it, like the picture there.
Folks, Mondays make history, and in the Grants Pass Courier has an article about 8x8, and the author's right here.
Right.
Right. Oh.
What are you trying to tell us here?
Well, if you drive around Grants Pass and you see it disappearing, you see a lot of the 8x8, but they're not very energy efficient, and a lot of people are taking the windows out and either put flat single pane or putting the flat pane with the false mullions and all through it, so it looks like it's 8x8, but it isn't. And if you know where to look, you can see where those places are. Like there's a house right across from the Memorial Gym at Grants Pass High School that's still kind of a beige color that has these windows and was part of Camp White.
Now do you see things that are similar here in your...
A church? Oh yes. The windows are was like that on the sides, both sides. Some of them we had to replace with modern windows, but some of the original ones are there.
Now tell me about where your church is.
On on Florence Lane, right behind the radio station.
KJO Radio.
Yes.
What do you know about this building? What can you tell me about coming to? How did you get to Grants Pass?
Well, it's as I understand, they trucked it over in this way, and I understand that they took it apart, as our guest said, and they moved it over and put it all back together. Now, I guess they had it numbered.
Assembly in Glendale just told me the story. They numbered every stick of theirs.
Every stick, yeah.
In fact, the assembly had someone came in and said, "Hey, we don't have a truck. We're going to tear down our building." And the guy said, "Well, if you'll tear down ours, we'll deliver yours to you." So a guy from up at Myrtle Creek brought it. Lots of people worked together, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Now, do you know of soldier boys that have come? Did you know any guys who were at Camp White?
Well, I was 5 years old and less, and it didn't make a lot of difference to me because I was born the year the camp opened. So when it decommissioned, I was like 4.
Yeah.
But my mother and my Aunt Ina worked at the Greyhound Depot, and every weekend they would have leave. Well, where do you go in Southern Oregon if you're right outside Medford? And they had thousands of servicemen that wanted to go someplace. There used to be a big dance hall on Foots Creek, and they'd go to Rogue River, and they'd come to Grants Pass. So my mom and my aunt knew a lot of them that came over on the bus. The Army would actually charter a bus to take them places for 3 or 4 hours on weekends.
And I understand some of those were churches, and people would say, "Come home for a home-cooked meal." And I've been I'd love to get all that recorded. Who took whom, and then some of these young people ended up staying here in the community or coming back.
Now, I haven't been able to confirm this, on the aftermath of it, but they had German prisoners of war at Camp White. And I've heard that a couple of them came back and married girls from Southern Oregon because they would take the prisoners with them on these outings. Because I guess they figured they were so far from home, they were not going to revolt or escape. What would they do to try to get back to Germany from the west coast of the United States?
One interview, the lady told me they'd be on the outside of the fence and they'd be learning German and learning English, and they had good times. Well, in this article, you just tell us a little bit about what you're so proud about this building.
Well, that is a picture of actually one of the barracks that still exists at the domiciliary, but that's the size of the building that my parents bought and tore down.
Oh.
And my father built our house out of it and my aunt's house next door, and then just saved the lumber, and for the next 10 years after that, we were still building with it. He built a double garage, then added a room on the back of the garage. He built, well, it's now a storage shed, but we called it the chicken shed because that's we had chickens, and built a barn. And then I remember he put an addition on somebody else's house, all using the lumber for the infrastructure. What's interesting about our house, it's not framed in 2x4s. It's used 2x4s in some places, but the runners and all upstairs in the attic are 2x10s and 2x12s. And Dad used to say, well, it may fall down, but it's never going to fall apart because it was very solid. And they used a really big gauge wire too. And our house is wired with Camp White wiring.
Oh, wow.
And you know, we didn't have a television set, chest freezer, computer, electrical appliances at that time, and we have never had to do anything with the wiring system. It still holds
Now,
up.
what about your church? Do you have it rewired? Or?
Yeah, we did. We had just recently had some rewiring, but we still have some of the old wiring in the attic part of the church.
Now,
and it's still good wire. It's just
when I'm in the church,
gauge.
I got so excited because the stairs are still there.
Yep.
How do they go? They go up, then they turn.
Well, it comes up to the in the front, and then you have a platform there, and go on each side is a room. But they tell me before they put the two rooms up there, there's just one giant room up there.
And in the back?
And in the back side, there's a real narrow stairway that goes up to the same kind of situation, except it's split rooms, and we don't use that for personnel or anyone up there. My wife uses it for her flower room.
There you go.
Decorates it with flowers.
It looks like it would have had a little balcony there for maybe a projector. What do you call those old projectors?
Probably an old 16 millimeter projector.
Probably. Yeah.
Bell and Howell or something like that.
Yeah. The people who know more about this can get in touch with us through the Historic Society in Grants Pass, Josephine County Historic. What's the address number there, or phone number?
Well, it's 512 Southwest 5th Street. We have the Schmidt House, which a lot of people walk to, but that's the museum, and next door to that is the research library. And it's 479-7827.
The fun story is that is another building that was lifted up and moved 3 blocks, and donated for $1. How much did your church cost?
Well, when we first got acquainted with it, I think that the Church of God, which is our organization from Cleveland, Tennessee, we bought it, and I think they paid $10,000 for the entire property and church.
And did you have
that was back in the 60s, 1960s, I think. So,
okay, and your house, how much did it cost?
Well, they said finished it was $4,500, so I suppose probably half of that was things that they bought.
Yeah.
Because he did not use the Camp White siding on the house, he used redwood siding. And the garage is redwood siding, but the other outbuildings are Camp White siding.
Do you know how much he paid for the structure itself to Camp White? I mean, or is that?
No, he never really told
Okay.
me, but I think it was around $3,000. It seems
Well,
like.
this is the story I've been told.
Okay, let's hear.
I understand that you had to put $200 down and you could get a building. But if you did a good job and picked up everything, you know, not leaving the scrap there for them to haul off, you got back $100.
Oh.
And Assembly Church up in Glendale did such a good job on their place and on the other one they helped with, they gave them back all $200.
Oh.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know if the VFW hall here in town was, in my mind it says that that came from Camp White. The old armory came from Camp White.
I don't know what she calls it now, the Grants Pass Community Center,
Yeah, that'd be.
with the asbestos siding on the side. I think it probably did. It seems like it did. I can't quite remember. I know the roller rink, which is now a mattress place, it was a dance studio
Furniture,
for.
yeah.
It's an old theater from Camp White.
Yeah, I have been told that came from Camp Adair,
Could be.
which is
Yeah.
Corvallis.
Corvallis.
And
We're around where I was raised. When I was a kid, they had a camp there.
yeah, Camp Adair.
Oh yeah, and they built a lot of houses out of that community too. They trucked them out, and I don't know if they paid for it or they just got to go in and haul it away.
Well, if you had the means to haul it at 25 cents a gallon, you could haul something 400 or 500 miles, and it wasn't going
Yeah.
to be a big expensive deal
Right.
for what you'd have to pay for it new.
And I've understood that after the war was over, lumber was at a premium. I was just told one house was built out in new lumber, and when they went in to put the sheetrock up, it was still dripping pitch. And so Camp White lumber was first class, top of the line.
And well dried by the time you built the house, yeah. And it looked like new lumber. I remember that. It wasn't, it hadn't turned color. And generally the infrastructure of a house doesn't. When you do something, you take it apart, it's still that light color.
Yeah, 4 years old is
Yeah.
probably all. People know that Martin Studebaker, where my family history, I was told by one fella, he knew that those were stolen military because those beams, they were big roundy beams. They said property of the U.S. government. And I said, but wasn't half of the new Southern Oregon built with
Yeah.
military issue lumber that was?
Probably did.
They stenciled that on everything,
Yeah.
and they weren't going to remove it. They wanted to dismantle it and get rid of it because it was an expensive project to keep up, just to pay for the upkeep of something like that when it's empty.
Now, what can we do as far as our audience to tell you about your church? What would you like them to write you letters that say,
Yeah,
I
if they know any-
remember?
Yeah, send pictures or whatever. We'd
Send pictures.
appreciate it. Our address is 1434 Florence Lane.
Okay, or if you want to go, just find Kjo and turn the corner,
There you go.
and you got a parking lot there for both places.
There you go.
What about this steeple?
It was lost, I guess, through the years of mishandling. Probably they told me that it was laying out on the side of the church, out in front, and the children played with it probably, but it eventually just deteriorated through the weather and those things, I guess, or someone's
Yeah, when
hauled
you're
it off.
saying dismantled,
Yep,
this is
see?
coming apart, or is that
Abs-
being built?
That's coming apart because there's buildings in the background.
Yeah.
They're taken apart.
Anybody who could build, I think if you'd built with an erector set, they'd hire you over to Camp White.
Yeah.
Well, what didn't open until about 9 months after Pearl Harbor, so they put it together really quick because it wasn't there. It wasn't something, they weren't building a camp there before.
No, it was just an agate desert, complete with chicken coops and guys who had ranches out there. One rancher told me he didn't much want it back after they'd knocked down his chicken coop and his barn. What would he want to buy it back for? They just said, hey, we want your place and here's some cash, goodbye. You didn't have a choice.
No, a little town completely disappeared.
What town was that?
I can't remember.
Okay.
But they had a reunion. It was on TV, and I didn't even know it had existed. But a few years ago, they had a reunion of people who remembered living there.
Oh, I hope
But you know,
someone will-
Camp White stretched out for miles. They put the big bunkers out miles away from where the people were concentrated, where they stored the ammunition, and they're dotted all over the area. The big cement bunkers, and you can see them, and some of them are completely deserted. And one of them looks like somebody's turned it into a part of their house, and another one looks like maybe somebody turned it into a wine cellar or something. But and some of them you can see right underneath where, and others they have pushed the dirt up around and used it because it's solid. It's like, I would say 36 inches walls, so if something blew up, it wouldn't go very far. If they were attacked, it would not, fly all over. So they were.
Well, I hadn't even heard that story.
Well, you'd go on the Antelope Road. If you drive from Gold Hill to White City, before you get there, maybe 6, 7, 8 miles before, you can start seeing these big cement boxes right out in the middle of fields.
They had those at Camp Adair too, just off of the campsite. They had these big bunkers and that.
Now, about 2 blocks from your church is a Quonset.
A saw shop, is that
A saw shop, yeah.
Saw shop.
Now, I'm told that came from Camp White.
Oh, it could
And
sure
Benny
could.
Spaulding, I'm told, had a nickel stick emporium. Well, that's his fun name for 2x4s that weren't perfect that you could buy for 5 cents.
Nickel stick.
And that was right on the banks of the Rogue River.
Yeah, it used to be, before it finally, I think, washed out, was one of the first flea markets in Grants Pass. It was all undercover with a big corrugated metal
Quonset hut.
Quonset hut.
Quonset
And then the Boys and Girls Club had 2 of them initially too, and I think they were remnants from the war.
I'm told that the walls of that, because it was also the armory, the walls were thick. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We need to get some more history recorded about where these things went and what, how Southern Oregon's known for being frugal folk. How
Yes.
would you describe your church? You have probably you don't have any banjos and accordions anymore, but that's the way it was.
Yeah, we have banjos and guitars and things. We're a Pentecostal church, and so if you come, and please do, it's loud. You came.
Yes, I did.
Probably was loud.
And I'm going to the Glendale one as well.
Well, good.
Because this is how I learn about history, not by reading books, but by going and seeing. Back to the Courier.
Okay.
Have you written other articles for the newspaper?
Yes, many.
Would you recommend that people, how would they get in touch with you about writing their own story?
Well, they could just call the Josephine County Historical Society. Since I retired from teaching, I'm now the person that does the main editing for the Mondays Make History, which means I have to have ready to go 1 article every week. And they do it every Monday.
Folks, history is important. I am told that the Daily Courier, the second most important thing in print, what do you call it? Black ink, is this page about history. First, of course, is the headlines. Do you know what it said when war broke out? Have you ever looked at that headline in the newspaper?
It probably was big bold letters that said war or something. That was a very
traumatic day.
Yeah.
And now you're way too young, both of you, to remember war breaking out.
I was just a child.
I was
I was not born yet when
I was
Pearl
born
Harbor.
in 37, so.
okay.
So I
We're
was
just about the same age. I just know that in our communities, people pulled together, and I mean, it didn't matter if it was collecting tin cans or collecting fat for
rags.
rags.
Rags. They had a rag band. You could sell rags and iron and any kind of metal. And we'd go down to the old gun shoe where they had a shotgun, and you could sell the shells there, the brass.
Well, my father was big on home movies, and they've got home movies of me as a baby with all Similac is what Mom fed me as a baby. Do you remember Similac? No. And they have piles of they saved all the cans, and it's taller than me, and I'm sitting there, and they saved it for the metal drives.
This story is way, way bigger than I am, and way bigger than half an hour show. And I'd love to have you come back and do another show just to tell us more about your memories of, well, I'm a recycle nut. And if this story isn't about recycling, I don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. We recycled everything. We recycled records. We recycled those little do you have any of those little war stamps that you had to take?
No, I remember them though.
Yeah, in the little canvas pockets, with the little stamps, whether they're for meat or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good.
I have some somewhere, but the longer I live, the more things kind of disappear in places.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for being my guest. I'm Bernie Martin Beck, and I get to talk to these people who saw it, knew it, and believe me, these history. It's wonderful. I hope you'll share your story with family and friends, and maybe with Better Life TV. Just give me a call. I'm Bernie Martin Beck saying thanks for being my guest.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.